Peter began driving, but once we had cleared the town, he pulled the side of the road and parked. When I looked about for the dig, I only saw sheep. I remember turning to look at him quizzically when he winked and got out of the car. Moments later, he had climbed into the passenger seat and showed me to drive. I had never driven before, but I am not one to back down from a challenge. I laughed and climbed intrepidly into the driver's seat, the black leather squeaking beneath me. The shiny red car was very new, and I nervously gripped the steering wheel with my bare hands. I examined each gear and gauge that I could see, rubbing away the dust that had gathered during our trek so far. My feet reached forward for the pedals, and I practiced braking and speeding. I glanced at Peter to make certain he was serious. He leaned back in his seat confidently and said, "Take us away." Believer, I'd like to write that I drove perfectly first thing. I'm afraid that'd be a lie. It took several false starts before we were whistling along the road to Paris, but I did it. I kept my eyes firmly open the path in order to avoid potholes in the road. I concentrated so hard, in fact, that I was quite startled when Peter said, "Hello, there it is." I had half forgotten why we took the road, and I looked up expecting to see Paris. Instead, I saw the encampment for the dig in a field close by. The workers created a small central tunnel that branched out in various directions like a spider's web. Tools and shovels had been abandoned throughout the site. I hate to speak ill of a colleague, but whoever was leading this dig seemed very disorganized. I resolved that our dig in Egypt would never be in such disrepair. I found myself more grateful for Peter's background in surveying. He knew the precautions that needed to be taken when digging for artifacts. This dig appeared to have closed down for the day, so we parked the car and walked over. The grass chipped away at the dried mud on my skirt as we passed through the field. A table built from driftwood stood near a canvas tent. On the table were small wooden tiles the size of a coin. Each tile had writing on it, and we studied them, concluding that they were Viking runes. While we had both focused on Egyptology at university, we still have profound respect for all historical research. I found myself wishing that I could work both in Egypt and in France, and I was sorely tempted to steal one of the runes for private study. But I forced myself to commit them to memory and draw their angular shape into my sketchpad. The sun began to set on the distant horizon, its orange and pink rays piercing the sky. As we were unfamiliar with the road to Paris, we worried about getting in too late. We hurried back to the car, and Peter took over driving. The road plowed by us as we chugged along for another hour. We enjoyed the drive in quiet as I contemplated the leaves that had carved their mark into the world around us. I wondered how the countryside had changed over the hundreds of years as it was settled and developed by its inhabitants. Tracing these thoughts around in my brain kept me occupied until we arrived in Paris. We were both very hungry when we arrived, since we did not have a proper lunch. Thankfully, our Paul Lawrence and Sons coupon made finding lodging at a stately hotel a breeze. The hotel had a small restaurant still open, and we were seated quickly. Despite the growing popularity of the electric light bulb, this restaurant did not have even one. Instead, candles glowed on the tabletops. Thick purple velvet drapes hung from the ceiling and pulled onto the floor. The gold fringe that lined the curtain's edges danced lightly in the slight evening wind and added to the romantic atmosphere. The restaurant served a heavenly duck with cranberry dressing, cream corn, and fresh snap peas for the main course. I was so hungry that I had to remind myself that I was in polite society and could not eat it all in one bite. But I slowed down enough to savor the cuisine, and I thought of you especially during the dessert portion. They serve a rich chocolate mousse that I'm certain you'd love. Once I return home, you and I will have to make a special trip to Paris so you may taste this mousse and judge for yourself. Once we retired to our room, I scrubbed at any remaining mud on my traveling skirt. The wool was ideal for the cool autumn days, so I hoped to refresh it and allow it to dry overnight. I had packed my travel bag with only one other dress, but it was a lighter gown of cream cotton. I had planned to wear it once we had made our way to the warmer southern climate. The following morning, I was relieved to find my dress had dried, and I dressed it in once again. My traveling cap was slightly dusty from our driving adventure, so I opened the window and shook it out. The city was just waking up, and the morning sun seemed hesitant to make her appearance. A thick fog still hid her from view. It was a perfect start to a lazy travel day. Our train was slated to depart at 9 o'clock, and we were comfortably arranged in our compartment by 8:30. I stowed my traveling case overhead and secured it with straps. 2 benches lined either side of the car, padded and upholstered in velvet. The seats were navy, but the seating closest to the window was warm and revealed the gray textile beneath. Despite the wear on the bench, the rest of the compartment appeared in good repair. The mahogany walls shined and reflected the electric chandelier. The train left the station with a familiar arch, and I settled into the window seat. I wiped at the condensation that had gathered so I might stare out the window. As we navigate out of the station, my first view was of other trains pulling in or resting like great stallions ready to gallop above the countryside. The steam blowing from their tops looked like their breath, and the clatter of the wheels like the clip-clop of horses' hoofs. I looked forward to staring out of the window at the towns and cities as we flew by, but I had the foreboding feeling that rain might hamper my view. Alas, I was correct. Within the first half hour of our trip, the clouds above opened up and began to pour. The rain batters against our window with fervor, and the wind whistled through the hallway. We were quite safe, but a bit chilled. A porter came by with comforters, and we gladly took 2. I took off my shoes and curled beneath it. The blanket provided was a black from the wind and warmed me to my toes. Despite my lack of view, I pulled out my sketchpad and set to work. I pictured the evening in Brighton once again and outlined the waves rolling up onto the sand shore. I admit that I lost myself in my drawing for several hours. Peter later mentioned that he had tried to speak to me, but it was like I could not hear. I was so engrossed. You know how I can be. There's something about a pencil between my fingers and blank page in front of me that commands my rapt attention. It feels push of possibility and it asks me to shape it into something new. It rained the entire way until we reached Naples, where we met our steamship to Alexandria. I had occasionally stood up on the train to stretch and work out my sore muscles, and my legs had adjusted to the rhythm of the train. Leaving it, walking to the port, and climbing aboard the steamer proved a test of my balance. My legs hardly knew where to go. After our quiet train ride, the steamship's large open deck was a welcome sight. The lounges were spaced evenly upon the beach planks, and large umbrellas provide shade. We were now far enough south that the afternoon sun could beat against the skin. I traded my old traveling dress for my lighter cotton gown and thanked my past self for this forethought. My excitement to arrive in Alexandria mounted while we were aboard. I spent most of my time on the observation deck, hoping to spy our distant destination. The air smelled salty, and the wind occasionally sprayed drops of sea water upon my face. I attempted to tightly tie my hair up every morning, but to no avail. My hair would break free. Small brown wisps would float about my face, and rest my hair would hang loosely about my shoulders by the evening. After dinner, Peter and I would retire to our cabin and spread out the rolled maps for our dig. We had been sent maps to scale by a local, and we worked on dividing each location into 1 meter squares. I measured and drew the lines upon the yellow map, while Peter named each section. We would be in charge of several locations, and we are uncertain how many workers we would have. We hoped to be as prepared as we could be before driving. Our last day on the ship, however, I did not return to our room in the evening. We were supposed to arrive in Alexandria the following morning, but a rumor spread on the ship that we might arrive early. I could not tear myself away from the observation deck, hoping the rumor was true. My efforts were not in vain. At 4 o'clock, I thought I spied a dot on the horizon, and by 7 o'clock, land was in full view. We had arrived at last. And my dearest Filipa, I must rest my pen and focus on the days in front of me instead of behind. I will write to you again and share with you the goings-on of our dig here in Egypt. Please share my note with mother and father, and be certain to take care of my little kitty, Sphinx. I look forward to your reply filled with details about trips to London, the harvest, and your studies. With love and warmth, your dearest sister, Hilda.